And we are now recording. Yay. Oh, good. Peggy.
And we watch him walking.
Yeah, they had the camera on you. That's funny.
And we have more people joining online. This is great. Thanks everybody for coming in. It's about 7 o'clock. We'll give it a few more minutes just to let some more people roll in the physical room or in the Zoom room. We got now Claudia and Gigi Hart. And who else? Benno. Oh, the Bennos, Mr. Benno. Oh, great to see you, Bob. All right. And I'm not sure if I'm even seeing everybody because I have a split screen because I'm just going to monitor the emails, just make sure everybody who wanted to be here is getting here. So I keep going back and forth between a couple of email accounts, the archives account, my own account, everybody's account. Oh, Melinda, Nikki Rinklin, excellent. Oh, Reverend Jan Carlson Bull. Hi, Jan. You're joining us from Massachusetts, I think. Connecticut, I'm sorry, okay.
Middletown, it's okay.
That's great. Well, welcome, Jan, so nice to see you.
All of these familiar faces are wonderful.
Yeah.
I see that Georgiana is here. And for those of us who are here in person, Gigi provided plan. I brought the rest of the plan and it's, Gigi made the plan. I just brought it in.
Oh, wonderful. Lucky you people in the Pearls room.
She just called us you people.
And welcome to Dana and who else is coming in. All right, great. Well, we got a really great crowd here. Thank you all for joining us tonight. We will get started in another minute or two. Is that okay, Jerry? One more minute? Because I'm like Reverend Scott and Reverend Charlie Ortman. If you say you're starting a program on time, you start it on time.
Is Lee going to be here also?
Are we going to hear what?
Is Lee going to be here also? Lee Barker?
No, we did not have former ministers coming this time.
Oh, okay.
This is a deep dive into what's in the archives. So we're going to be showing you our treasures from the archives. Yeah.
I can't share videos from a computer that's not the main computer without it echoing. So I have to bring it's so the things we get to learn.
Okay. And we did just enable closed captioning. If anybody would like to know that, we did enable closed captioning. Hopefully that would be working for
I
everyone.
can't believe he didn't tell you didn't have choir rehearsal because we've got.
Mom here. It's her first time coming. So
Who's your mom?
Jane.
Jane's your mom. That's where I recognize.
Yeah.
By the way, how are you, Chris? How are you?
And I'm spotlighting Irene Sanderson, who is also on the archives committee. So Irene, you're kind of front and center right now, just so you know, with Mr. Gary sitting there behind you. I wanted everybody to also see.
I love you all.
I wanted everyone also to see Irene.
You aren't we are not, you are spotlight right now, Jane, like not Irene. Yeah, I think when you spotlight someone, it's only for you.
Okay, well, I guess I failed at that one. All right, well, I tried. Okay. But there is Irene.
Oh, Arlene, hi.
You're supposed to say something?
Nope, we're recognizing people that are here, Gary. Yeah.
Okay, Jane, thank you.
Yeah, and once we get started, I may be going around to mute people just to have as much quality audio as we would like. I know Rev Scott will be playing the audio from another area, but I think overall it just helps the overall quality of a program to have everybody muted. So if you would like to do that yourself, you can certainly do that yourself, and that would be wonderful. And thank you for all joining us. We have more people coming in. Wow, this is great. All right, excellent. I guess it was that last minute email that Rev Scott sent out. Thank you, Rev Scott.
Yeah.
But we did not have all these people signed up, so this is great. Great, great, great. And Chris Corbett, thank you for your help in
Yeah.
in-person attendance. We appreciate that as well. So Jerry, you want to get started? You want to kick us off?
Yeah, can you hear me okay from that little, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Hopefully we won't have too many more multimodal presentations, but I'll just talk loudly, and I think everyone's getting me pretty clearly. Welcome everybody who's here. I'm Jerry Freed, one of the members of the archives team, and we have a presentation. This is supposed to run now. The members of the archives team will also be available at the end of the hour, and maybe we'll run a little under so we can get a couple of a little bit of a discussion going as part of the hour. But we'll be here for another half hour after the hour, so till at least I guess that would be 8:30. And there's a presentation we have put together that's about 45 minutes, and that, you know, we recorded a little tour downstairs. We showed a little bit about what we have and how we've organized it online. And I think if everybody is in, Rev Scott, you could just play that video full screen and we can watch that. And I guess if there's anyone who has problems or issues, maybe they could do it in a text so we can see them and not interrupt. And I guess if you're, I guess everyone should mute except for Rev Scott, who's got playing video. So here we go.
Hi, I'm Becky Doggett. I'm a volunteer in our archives. We're going to go downstairs, which is where the archives are. And you'll notice that this is also where our administrative offices are. As you walk into the archives area, you really see the boxes that contain our most precious items. These are artifacts from 1897, from the Women's Alliance. We have founding mothers who in 1897 decided that they wanted a liberal religious education for their children, and that's how we got started in 1897. So here we even have handwritten minutes, letters, and other items that represent how we got started as a congregation.
Hi, I'm Jane Gaertner, a volunteer in the archives, and I'm going to show you the very first Unity Church scrapbook from 1897. The scrapbooks contain documents that were used on a weekly basis to document the church's history. You are cordially invited to attend a meeting in the studio at the Montclair Bank Building on Wednesday, October 6th, 1897 at 8 p.m. to take part in the organization of a liberal society and Sunday school in the town of Montclair.
Right here we have the album that Phyllis Workinger maintained on the dance group that she was a part of back in the day.
It's Phyllis. I've seen.
As people pass away, sometimes their offspring will bring us copies of things that a member has had in their attic or stashed away someplace, and so the archives keep growing. One of my favorite items that we have here are World War I letters. These are letters from 1917 from kids of our congregation who were in the war in France. And they wrote these very poignant letters back to Reverend Weirs, talking about their experiences as being these young soldiers in World War I. They're really, really precious items to read sometimes. And of course, many of you know that the Osborne family, which has been a very active member of this congregation, also lost a son in the war, and he happened to be the first American who was killed in World War I. He was a conscientious objector, was driving an ambulance, and was killed in France.
October 15th, 1918, at the front, from Ab Osborne, the brother of Paul Osborne. Dear folks at home, of course, I have been back to the front 2 days after 4 days leave. The captain was kind enough to give me the leave so I could go and visit Paul's camp and a little cemetery where he is buried. I started north for the camp at noon. The going was not so easy, but I reached the big French barracks about 3 in the afternoon. There's no American ambulance section there now. The place was there, but that's all except the hospital. I walked down after a few minutes to the hospital. It looks just the same. I stood in front of the little wooden chapel where I had stood a little over a year ago at the impressive funeral. Doesn't seem that long though. A beautiful day, and I could see again all of the fellows standing around just as though they were right there. Then I went out of the gate and across the open fields towards the little military cemetery. The guns were still booming in the distance, exactly as the time before, and it seemed strange to be going across all alone. I walked almost exactly to Paul's grave, and everything is neat and clean and well kept up. I said the little prayer my mother taught Paul and me, and I only hope I can do as well in life as he did.
This congregation started 2 very important cultural programs that really influenced the whole community here in Montclair and beyond Montclair. One is called the Collegiate Pulpit, where we invited, and it's over the boxes for the Collegiate Pulpit, and the Unity concerts over on this section. But the Collegiate Pulpit, we can do a lot of name dropping when we talk about the speakers who came and spoke in our services, or sometimes other parts of the day or week. But the Collegiate Pulpit can boast such well-known people as Dag Hammarskjöld from UN, Ralph Bunch from the UN, Paul Robeson. The other big piece of cultural contribution that this congregation made, it started with Reverend Weirs, was the Unity concerts. Again, we can do a lot of name dropping about the outstanding performers, soloists, symphonies, all kinds of musical concerts that happened here. All those tapes now have been digitized. These are tapes of sermons and other important speeches that have been made over the years. And that is the most exciting part of our work these days, is we're digitizing this entire collection bit by bit.
I'm Jerry Freed. I've been volunteering with the archives for about 1.5 years now, and I've been mostly focusing on trying to get all of this digitized, scanned, and uploaded so that it's all accessible to every member of the congregation, with the goal of crowdsourcing our own history and putting everything in a form that people can respond to it and comment on it online. At this point, we have about 1/4 of the archives digitized and uploaded. It lives in a folder in UUCM's online Dropbox, organized in folders, and will eventually be searchable by keywords, the same way you use Google or other search engines, within the documents themselves. So, for instance, you could search for Dr. Fletcher's writings about racism or the war in Vietnam. You can see that the folders are organized by type, so you will find orders of service, gazettes, scrapbooks, yearbooks, which are member directories, photos, annual reports, board minutes, etc. To show just a couple of the folders, in the sermons folder there are several categories of sermons, mostly scans of printed sermons by each of the parish and many of our guest ministers over 125 years. Within this folder are over 100 hours of 1/4-inch tapes that have been digitized and partly organized, mostly from the early 1960s to the early 1970s, mostly of Dr. Fletcher and Pennington, but with several great lay presentations, including a very young Brendan Byrne speaking about organized crime in New Jersey, a service given by John Young, a youth minister who was hired by all of the New Jersey UU congregations to work with youth in Trenton in the years after the Newark riots, and one given by the Newark chief of police, offering his side of the story as a way of presenting the events. and also a recording of Pauli Murray during the same presentation she did here. In the photos folder are many beautiful black and white images, and also about 1,000 slides organized and labeled by former President Nancy Knertzer with notes that seemed directly written for those of us she knew would come one day to use them. We have thousands of digital images from the last 25 years, copied from CDs and DVDs as well. The archives team has been working with Jacqueline Poleo and other staff members so that all of the current services and the current documents, like board minutes and annual reports, will be archived for a one-stop journey to all of our history in the future, so that we may access every reference to racism or Buddhism or political movements.
I'm Irene Sanderson. I've been working in the archives for something like 16 plus minus a couple of years, and oftentimes things come to the archives very disorganized. Right now, our archives look beautifully organized, but believe me, there's boxes of things that do need organization. This is one example of photographs where some things are well put together, other things like this, you have to go by piece and decide who's in it, what's happening, and organize these in such fashion that we can, when we need to have them ready for an event or something, we have to know where those things are. This is one of the things that is so exciting about working in the archives. I've learned so much. Just sorting things like orders of service, what's going on in the congregation, who's involved, how the people felt about something.
One of the very invaluable documents that we have here in the archives are the commemoration booklets that are put together celebrating key anniversary years of the congregation. This one in particular, called Celebrating 100 Years, has been an invaluable resource. We now have digitized these different commemoration booklets, and members might find them invaluable in terms of trying to find in a nutshell what was going on, or who were some of the luminaries who spoke at the collegiate pulpit, and you know, what the congregation is proud that they achieved in that particular era. So this 100th anniversary was you know, a very important milestone for the congregation, and the people who worked on this did an amazing job with making sure that the history and the legacy of our congregation was well documented up to that time.
Currently, on the archives team, we are documenting who we are, how we got here, and the impact of this congregation on the Montclair area. Here is a clip of Lexi Morrow, an activist raised in our religious education program, giving testimony to the vision of our congregation's founding mothers.
Hello, my name is Lexi Morrow, daughter of Kathy Riley and Lance Morrow. In the UUCM's religious education program, I learned the concept of social justice work, the value of caring for others, and how to create a foundation for future change. Throughout my time in the religious education program, I learned patience, compassion, understanding, and how to analyze the needs of my community to assist in care. These lessons have taken me in many different directions, from volunteering at MESH to standing witness at the Standing Rock movement, along with helping to organize mutual aid groups to distribute supplies and hot food when most programs were shut down during COVID. Another member of my religious education class, Jordan Tassie, did the same thing by collecting garbage from the community in Montclair. Here at the UUCM, we see people, we hear their needs, and we have learned to do what we can to make a difference. I'm so grateful for those women who wanted liberal religious education for their children in 1897, and I would not be the person I am today if I had not had the privilege to grow and learn in the UUCM religious education program. Thank you.
In this portion of our program, we're going to give you an example of Dr. Fletcher and the Collegiate Pulpit series and how they found a pioneering human rights leader, Dr. Pauli Murray, to speak. Here is a 3-minute trailer a very interesting documentary.
There are some people who now argue that you cannot teach American history without teaching about Pauli Murray.
Pauli was a writer, a lawyer, a priest, a poet. Pauli was a feisty woman.
My name is Pauli Murray. My whole history has been a struggle in a society dominated by the ideas that blacks were inferior to whites and women were inferior to men.
Pauli was way ahead of the times.
I chose for my senior paper, should Plessy versus Ferguson be overruled? My little argument went to the Supreme Court.
Y'all see all of the different folks that are in this room? That is made possible by Pauli Murray.
If you rip away everything, oppression is the business of not respecting one's personhood. For my first 2 years, I was the only woman in the law school. They didn't even let me talk.
Thurgood Marshall is talking about Jim Crow, and she says, what I'm experiencing is Jane Crow.
Pauli Murray was not just an amazing lawyer or a badass feminist, but also a queer, non-binary person. Sitting in front of Murray's notes, the turmoil and the suffering, this is a feeling I know well. Scholars who have written about Pauli largely still use feminine pronouns. I don't know what pronouns Pauli would say.
Trans and gender non-binary people have always been a part of our American context. So did y'all just think that your generation invented it?
But if this country is to survive, we must live together in harmony.
Pauli may not have realized they would be a beacon for so many folks.
Pauli's time had not come. We have to work for a world in which it does come.
If you say I can't, I'll show you I can, even if I die trying.
Dr. Pauli Murray led a fascinating and multifaceted life. In 1969, in our archives, the Montclair Times announcement of Dr. Murray's appearance at the Unitarian Church lists Dr. Murray's self-description: 1/3 Negro, 1/3 American Indian, and 1/3 white. The press clipping does not mention her constant questioning of her gender, possibly because no terms existed at that time to describe her feelings that she identified as male. In-depth articles, such as the one from the New Yorker, titled "The Many Lives of Pauli Murray," discuss her lifelong questioning with male-identified feelings, including therapy and other treatments. A professor friend described her as possibly transgender before the term we know today. In 1969, she was invited to the finale of the Unity Church's Collegiate Pulpit Series, a series begun in 1922 at the Unity Church. Dr. Murray was slated to read her epic poem, Dark Testament, which told the story of the Negro's long travail in America from the slave ship to current days. The reading also featured Mr. Morris Milgram, a pioneer in integrated housing. Mr. Milgram's part addressed how her poem changed his life and inspired him to become a developer of integrated housing. At this time, Dr. Murray was a professor at Brandeis University. This reading, while not from our digitized records, is from 1971, the exact same presentation. The same series at our church featured W.E.B. Du Bois, Letty Pogrebin, and Amiri Baraka. Some historical context in January 1969. The front page of the New York Times buzzed about the upcoming inauguration of Richard Nixon. Stories about President Johnson's legacy, the upcoming Paris peace talks on the Vietnam War, university student unrest nationwide were prevalent. Recall that Martin Luther King and Robert Kennedy were assassinated the prior year. Ken Gibson was poised to become the first Black mayor of Newark, attempting to heal the city from the 1967 Newark Rebellion, in which 26 persons died and hundreds were injured. Therefore, close your eyes, put yourself in a UUCM pew, and pretend it's May 1st, 1969, as you listen to this clip of UUCM Legacy of Social Justice.
Dark Testament in memory of Stephen Vincent Benet. Freedom is a dream, haunting as amber wine, or worlds remembered out of time. Not Eden's gate, but freedom lures us down a trail of skulls, where men forever crush the dreamers, never the dream. I was an Israelite, walking a sea bottom. I was a Negro slave, following the North Star. I was an immigrant huddled in ship's belly. I was a Mormon searching for a temple. I was a refugee clogging roads to nowhere. Always the dream was the same. Always the dream was freedom. America was a new dream and a new world for dreaming. America was the vast, sleeping Gulliver of the globe. America was the dream of freedom. But the dream was lost when campfires grew, the Bible twisted as white men threw the redskins back to Mountain Pass, the senses dulled with whiskey flask, the arrow broken by searing lead. Better to die, the red man said. The white slave ran away too soon, followed the path of dying moon, a face forgotten in frontier shack where none asked questions, few turned back. Here was a place where a man could stand, holding free earth in scrawny hand. Here was a world where freedom was won by the hand on an axe, the hand on a gun. Free earth hungered for free men, but free men soon hungered for gold. Planters bargained with traders, traders bargained with slavers, slavers turned toward Africa. The dream was lost in the quest for gold. Ours is no bedtime story children beg to hear. No heroes rode down the night to warn our sleeping villages. Ours is a tale of blood streaking the Atlantic, from Africa to Barbados, from Haiti to Massachusetts, from Rhode Island to Virginia, from the red clay of Georgia to Requiem in Memphis, from swampy graves in Mississippi to the morgues of Detroit. Ours is a tale of charred and blackened fruit, aborted harvest dropped from blazing bough, a tale of eagles exiled from the nest, brooding and hovering on the edge of sky, a somber shadow on this native earth, yet no faint tremor of her breast eludes the circle of our hungered eye. Better our seed rot on the ground and our hearts burn to ash than the years be empty of our imprint. We have no other dream, no land but this, With slow, deliberate hands, these years have set her image on our brows. We are her seed, have borne a fruit native and pure as unblemished cotton. Then let the dream linger on. Let it be the test of nations. Let it be the quest of all our days, the fevered pounding of our blood, the measure of our souls, that none shall rest in any land, and none return to dreamless sleep, no heart be quieted, no tongue be stilled, until the final man may stand in any place and thrust his shoulders to the sky, friend and brother to every other man.
My name is Nicole Gray, she, her, hers. On a beautiful Sunday morning in October 1986, Reverend Lee Barker, who was the minister at the Unitarian Church of Montclair, preached a sermon, Danger from the Religious Right. It's striking to see how things have changed, especially the fact that there was no internet. And the main means of communication and connectivity occurred via written and broadcast media. It's also striking how many things have stayed the same. First of all, human nature. There's nothing new under the sun in terms of human nature. But also the way the sun shines through the windows in the sanctuary on Sunday mornings in the fall, and how that sunshine makes everything seem bright, shiny, and new. And that Sunday morning calm, awe, joy, despair, fatigue, and horror. Horror. What horror? Well, Reverend Barker spoke about horror and the terror of the prospect of what the increasingly powerful religious right, which at that time was led by televangelists, could accomplish if not constantly checked and pushed back. One part of the sermon in particular was especially terrifying, and 36 years after that message was preached from our pulpit, it has come to pass. Citing the then newly published Handmaid's Tale written by Margaret Atwood, Reverend Barker spoke about the goal of the religious right to control women's reproduction. This past summer, that goal is a fait accompli, courtesy of the Supreme Court. As women now no longer have federally protected right to abortion. As prescient as Reverend Barber's sermon was, it also was instructive. Be alert, speak up, take action. He spoke of the values that the religious right have in their drive to eliminate personal liberty and impose their conservative values in real life, in society, in every sphere of life. The underlying drumbeat during the sermon was the same. Beware, there's danger, it's not okay. Take action and speak up. Reverend Barker's prescience makes it clear that any of the things that he warned about 36 years ago, as well as any of the things that our ministers talk about from the pulpit on Sunday mornings right now, right here, could come to pass. So please take heed, be warned, speak up, and don't stop.
In listening to John Young's recording from November 1969, my most immediate reaction was that without knowing it was from 1969, I could have easily assumed that it was recorded today. So much of what he spoke of still resonates within the ongoing work of this faith. You know, I'm really intrigued to know more about John Young and the work that he was doing, especially with youth. There's one section in particular that really stands out for me. Mr. Young was asked to bring 5 Black youth from the Trenton area to a junior high camp in Rowe, Massachusetts. And in that cross-cultural interaction, Young makes an observation. And although the kids got to know each other and were no longer feeling like strangers, Young has this to say: I'm sort of amazed at what was going on and what we are doing sometimes with our young people. I have never been in the company of so many unfeeling people, very intellectual, very rational, but afraid to feel. And I wonder if that's what we're really doing. And I find that now, not only dealing with the young people, I find it so true of old people. We're cold, we're mechanical, we're out of touch, we're intellectual. He goes on to use an analogy of freeze-dried coffee. He says, and that's really how I think that we are becoming, you know, like freeze-dried. And there's something that we have extracted from us. And maybe when we get that magic ingredient and pour it back in, we'll then become alive again, become whole and real. I'm wondering when that time is going to be. I hope it's not too far off, because I think unless we can get back into touch with ourselves, you know, begin to feel, begin to experience things, and quit trying to be so intellectual about things. Perhaps John Young tapped into something that's almost timeless, that there is an internal struggle for some of us, at least, who have been indoctrinated to embrace the head, but not the heart. And yet, this faith, this place, it calls us ever onwards to more, to dig deeper, to move beyond the head into the heart. It has been said before that we do not think ourselves into new ways of living, but we live ourselves into new ways of thinking. That seemed to be true in 1969, and it seems to be just as true today.
And I have 2 tea groups that I sort of work with here in Montclair. And one, we did sort of a non-verbal exercise where I had one fellow stand up and just fall back into my arms. And when he got finished, he said, you know, what did you do that for? You know, I said, gee, I didn't feel anything. Gee, there wasn't any point to it. And then he was holding his arms like that, and he found out his heart was beating. He says, yeah, I begin to feel something. And it's little things. We don't feel. We don't know. I'm wondering how it is this morning, sitting here as I look in the church. How do you relate to the back of that head that you're looking at? How do you relate to the back of that head? Is it great? Have you ever touched that head? Have you ever felt that head? It's there, you know, it has feelings. Do we touch anyone anymore? We don't do that. No, we use a handshake, something to keep us at a distance, you know. And we teach our children to keep their hands to themselves and to keep their distance. This is the first year since I've been involved in this program that I am traveling back and forth to churches alone. 1969, what kind of year has it been? It has been a year to me of joy, but it's also been a year to me of deep and great sorrow. It has been a year to me of learning, not only about others, but about myself. It has brought out to me many things, many of which have to do with the House of Soul, which is located in Trenton. And a lot of it has to do with my exposure to the greater society. And so today, in maybe just a short period, I'll try to run down some of the things that I have been involved in over the past year. Foremost, I guess, in the beginning, in the minds of many people, will be the school incident in the city of Trenton. I think that most of us are aware, either through various communications through our newsletters or by communications here in the churches, of being arrested under what they call the new school intruder law in the state of New Jersey, and going to trial and subsequently found guilty and fined $500 for my involvement in the school. Well, I'm not here this morning to justify my behavior in being in the school, because I felt that what I was doing at that particular time, I felt was right. And so therefore I feel that there needs to be no justification, but however, there may be questions in the minds of many people, and maybe later on in the morning I can attempt to answer some of those questions. What has been the net result? I think that many people were sort of caught up in the trial and the proceedings and what have you, and have not been able to look at some of the results that came from my exposure to the Trenton school system. One of the things that was most meaningful to me, that on that steering committee of 9 students from Trenton Central High School, we had 4 seniors who had no idea of going to college or furthering their education. At the last time when I spoke, I said, I used to tell the congregations that 3 out of those 4 are now attending colleges. As of this morning, I'm sort of proud to admit that 4 out of those 4 are now attending college. That is something good that I felt that came out of it. I'm sort of a rebel in things. I wish you'd just turn around and stand up and look at that head you've been relating to the back of. You know, I stood up here and I could feel the warmth that was coming from people as they stood up and looked at one another. I could stand up here and feel your feeling. And like, you know, to me, that's really spiritual. That's really religion. That's really love.
I visited the UUCM's archives for the first time in 2017 when they were located in a hallway closet. I was writing a memoir about the history of enslavement in my family, in which religion and spirituality is a major theme, and I knew I would need to reflect on my own spiritual development and how I went from generations of Methodists, stretching all the way back to both the enslaved women and the enslaving men in my family, to my decision in 2003 to become a UU and join this congregation. The stories of our archives have flowed from the pulpit in the years that I've been a member here, as our ministers and service leaders spoke of the women who founded this church to provide a liberal education for their children, the work ministers did to fight racism in the community, and the luminaries who spoke in our lecture series on the issues of the day, from Margaret Sanger to W.E.B. Du Bois. As Irene Sanderson showed me the carefully saved articles about the speeches that Du Bois and Booker T. Washington delivered here, and Jerry Freed shared a picture of Pauli Murray sitting in our Alliance room, I could see my place in the arc of my family's spiritual journey crystallizing. For my enslaved ancestors, their spiritual lives were the place where they were most free. And almost 200 years later, in very different circumstances, that is the truth for me. Looking back at our congregation's history gave me a deeper understanding of where I am today spiritually, and I so appreciate the work the archives team is doing to make sure the UUCM always has this grounding touchstone that allows us to look back so that we can move forward.
I confess to failing at my initial goal for this evening.
My original secret agenda for the presentation was to provide some simple evidence to show the effectiveness of our small band of conscientious radicals in fueling some of the most important changes that have occurred in our country over the last 125 years. We know that we've been on the right side of history, promoting initiatives and policies that improved equity, held the government and powerful forces to account for immorality and injustice. It's quite clear that we've been working on bending the moral arc for generations if you consider this abridged list. Our creation was the product of women's empowerment 70 years before women's lib was first uttered. We were strong advocates for world peace, for the League of Nations and United Nations, for stopping wars from Vietnam through the Iraq wars and other Gulf wars, for successful denuclearization exemplified by the various treaties signed from the 60s through the 80s. We've always promoted racial and socioeconomic justice movements far before such advocacy became popular in common culture, exemplified by our role in bringing marriage equality to New Jersey and by hosting a Black Lives Matter flag over 8 years ago. We founded initiatives such as the Montclair Inn, advocated for affordable housing, and were instrumental in the creation of MESH and other social service charities and efforts. These achievements were articulated by former UUCM ministers Barker, Ortman, and Tomlinson to us. Other highlights were the Undoing Racism team's efforts, immigration advocacy, welcoming congregation, Peaceside, after-school tutoring program, and MESH. Searching through many of the tens of thousands of pages of our history in the archives, I really couldn't find the smoking gun that showed our methods. I didn't see exactly how we did what we did. Couldn't find the lists of witnesses in court cases, the meetings with elected officials, signatures on petitions, participants in historic marches. I suppose I shouldn't be too surprised. After all, I'm no historian. I have an interest in history and I took a few college courses, but this is really my first attempt to look through primary sources to find evidence and make a case. I did find lots of evidence. One does get a clear sense about the people who came together here over 125 years. The members, visitors, guests, leaders, volunteers and staff. Colorful figures with ambitious aspirations, people who were all in on their commitment to this place. Just a couple of the hundreds of examples. One is on our 50th anniversary, we read these words: both morning services at Unity Church and Forum met in the evening to be devoted to the present titanic effort to wield the nation and the future. Alfred Noyes, English poet and playwright, was invited to speak at both events. This is from 1918. Searching the web, I find that Noyes was a noted politician who was credited with inventing the death ray that from his 1940 science fiction novel, which is also credited with influencing Orwell's 1984. And Noyes was a huge advocate for the League of Nations, founded 2 years earlier on September 10th, 1920. The League was the precursor to the United Nations, founded in the ashes of the Second World War. Woodrow Wilson won the Nobel Prize for his role in its founding. The broad mission of the League would shame the current UN, preventing wars through collective security and disarmament, setting international disputes through negotiation and arbitration, improving labor conditions, just treatment of native inhabitants, human and drug trafficking, the arms trade, global health, prisoners of war, and protection of minorities in Europe. So you see, you pick at one thread and it turns out there are piles of tapestries underneath. Or looking through lists of some of our notable members. Harold Pitney Brown, one of our earliest presidents, he worked exclusively with Edison and was his partner in an electric rail business. Frederick Melcher, also a former UUN president, also a former UUCM president, who single-handedly created both of the major prizes in children's literature for America, the Caldecott and Newbery Awards. Don Miller, artist who created the famous Martin Luther King mural at his library, and Hollywood and stage actor Emil Staley, who's also a former UUCM president. So what I've come to discover is that the bold-faced names, the Thurgood Marshall, the Pauli Murrays, the Langston Hughes, impressive as they are, they're really not the important thing, nor is the impressive resumes of the members. It's the ethos of this place, the positive energy and passion, the unrelenting quest to achieve great things. The special something one senses so clearly in the ambitious plans laid out in 1920, not only for rebuilding a mostly destroyed building, but also for creating Unity Hall, later named for Dr. Fletcher, to hold large community meetings, to put on plays and lecture series, and also the writings that give a charge and for us to carry out ambitious plans for the Ladies Alliance, our founding mothers, the huge men's group, our Sunday school, and the many, many other affiliated groups that brought together all of these interests so that we could learn more about cultures, religions, philosophies, and ideas and put them into practice. All these ambitious plans were done the following year after our congregation was practically burned to the ground. Here's the thing about the archives. It's a treasure hunt to search in the archives. It's been lovingly preserved for over 125 years by people who share our passions and aspirations. Their touch is over every document and every photo. We who volunteer do it because it's a joy to participate in this multi-generational mission of preserving and restoring what we have. I came here trying to gain some insights into my philosophy of life, and I've stayed to get further into the philosophies and the values that define our being here. All of us are deep in the river now, and we're inviting you all to bring yourself as well. We need people who are curious about the past and want to tap into these forebears who are the source of our ethos and our very home. Open any of the many doors, and there are worlds beyond, stretching beyond time and across the globe. Whether you're someone who loves to read biographies or history or learn to music recorded here 60 years ago, learn more about how this particular part of the country got to be so rich in varied cultures and ideas. Any of these things, this is a place for you to explore and play and participate in weaving our historical tapestry. Please contact us and let us know what you're interested in, whether you're interested in joining the team or just curious about anything that transpired over the last 125 years. And we'd love to show you what we have and welcome you to play in our sandbox. Thanks for being part of this event, which concludes with this invitation. We'll happily stay here on Zoom and in the Pearls Room to answer any questions about the archives and our history. Thank you. So that concludes the formal portion of the presentation for this. We have members of the archives team are mostly virtual. Irene Sanderson, you can probably see on screen, and also Jane Gaertner is one of the boxes. Chris Glickson is here. Who am I leaving out? Becky Doggett is on her way to Ghana this evening, I guess, so she can't participate in it. But really, we're here to have a little bit of a discussion. People are interested in different parts of the history. Probably each of us knows different aspects of it, and there's a lot we don't know. But the main reason for this particular evening was really just to give a taste of some of the many things that are in the archive, and if people are interested, what else is in there, or if that presentation wasn't clear enough, and it may not have been clear enough on your monitors, you're all welcome to ask questions, and I can probably show you things that we have online as well. So I guess I'll just ask people who are in the room, because we have a pretty good crowd here, if there's anything that you want to talk about or ask questions of.
I have a question actually. We have this collection of commemorative journals for different anniversaries. So this is 125 years. Is there a plan to do such a publication or such?
Well, I would say for 125th anniversary, probably this is going to be more about sharing prior histories and creating a new history. I mean, partly because of COVID, and also partly because there was such great work done in the past. So I think, hey, I don't know, Reverend Scott, can you give me, can I do screen sharing? I guess I can from here.
You should be able to share. Go ahead.
Okay, great. So so I'm gonna share my screen. Let's see if that comes up okay. I'll share my screen. Okay, cool. Okay, so this what you're looking at here, this is what the online archives looks like. And you know, what I'd say is if anybody's interested in the archive, just email us and we'll give you access to it. There's absolutely no reason why people can't browse around in here. Nothing can be deleted, nothing can be changed. I'll just give you an example of how you can get like a very quick overview of our history. So as you can see, there's folders with different categories. The top folder is anniversaries, and you know each of these are a PDF. And the two folders are folders from 1997, from our 100th anniversary. And it's kind of cool. The first one are basically credo statements from members. So, and Bill Brock and Nancy Brock happen to have not made it into the whole thing, which is why there it says missing pages. But the entire document is here. And this is another book that looks similar to the one that we showed you earlier for the anniversary. But these are all people who gave their credo statements on what their beliefs were. Notice the first one is literary discussion on God, religion, and Unitarian Church by members of the first and second grade RE classes. But that's the very first one. You know, you can tell we believe that there's a God. Some of us believe that God is a being that sits in the sky and watches us all. Some of us believe that God's a spirit, both male and female. We all think God is everything and God is everywhere. God made people and God made everything too. All the different these little quotes, and these are children members who signed it all too. Some of us know these people. So this gives you a sense of what we were communicating, and so member credo statements as well as children's credo statements. So anyway, so what you asked about is this particular anniversary. We can't do quite as much as they did back then, but if you're interested in getting a quick summary of our history, the best way is to go to this particular folder. We can show you why and how. But everything from the 10th anniversary in 1907, the 20th, the 25th, the 40th, the 50th, and then the centennial celebrations, and each of these at the bottom, these are all the booklets that we'll put together, including this folder, which is the centennial dinner. There's notes about from the centennial dinner. This is real raw history here, but the one that I wanted to show you actually was the one that has some photographs from the dinner. I was actually talking with two Spaniards the other day, and there's a I'm not even sure where it is now, but the photographs in the centennial dinner are in one of these folders, and then really get a good sense of the history just from those.
So Jerry, that's a tremendous intro, and I think it would be good to have access to look through at leisure and then come to ask questions. On some things that we learned.
Yeah, and definitely that 100th anniversary booklet, that's outstanding, and there were a lot of them printed up, but there are actually still a few copies left. But anybody who's interested in getting a nutshell view of it. In fact, everybody who registered for this we'll send a link to, so you can go and you can also download any of these things. These files are all available to look at. And let me just do one thing while I'm sharing screen here. And most of the comments on things are my own, but just to give a sense of the scope of what it really means to be like crowdsourcing our history. This thing that I double clicked on is actually, this is a multi-page document of orders of service for reference. And if you look on on the right side of the screen, these are mostly my comments here, but they're sort of, but got page numbers on them. So you can go on here. So let's see, Jane has given a comment here. But the idea is to be able to look at it and be able to find your way through. Like, so for instance, this is like something that I just made a note of, page 232, truly impressive list of events in the calendar for May. So this is May 22nd, and I'll just see if I can blow this up a little bit. Calendar for May 1st, exhibition and closing session at the Girls Sewing School. May 2nd, lecture recital on Chopin by Reverend Walter Swisher. May 3rd, Boys Afternoon Club. May 4th, moving picture entertainment. This is in the 20s. They purchased a movie projector and had a lantern slide projector so that they could show things for kids who couldn't afford to go to the movies.